Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another video on the Guilty as Charged podcast YouTube channel. I don't think I've done one of these yet. I've done film breakdowns that have been on Patreon, but I haven't done a public YouTube video. So I'm Alex. You probably have heard my voice way too many times based on our downloads. So I wanted to do a video on my top five picks at number 5. Don't get too comfortable with this video because this video might go up on Saturday and Sunday, and then, oops, the Chargers could go up to number 3. They could fall down the draft, say to number 7 or something if they were to win. So a lot of things can still happen. Obviously, the big Cowboys-Bengals game is tomorrow. So I want to lay out a few ground rules here in terms of how I'm making this top 5 picks at number 5 list. I'm going to make this using a few assumptions. One is that Trevor Lawrence to the Jets, Justin Fields to the Jaguars, Penei Sewell to the Bengals, and Patrick Surtain to the Cowboys. So in this simulation, those players are off the board. So that is my main assumption here in creating this kind of top 5 list of what the Chargers can do with that 5th pick. So first, I want to start with an honorable mention. And that first honorable mention is Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts might not seem like a Chargers pick on paper because you're like, well, they have Hunter Henry. The thing about Hunter Henry is he's a free agent. And I do expect him to be back. But in the case that he's not, I don't think it would be crazy to pick him with the 5th pick, just because they would need a tight end at that point. I don't think you're putting Donald Barham in the first tight end spot, and someone like Virgil Green is a blocking tight end who's also a free agent, along with Hunter Henry. So if Hunter Henry leaves, you're basically rebuilding the tight end group from scratch. And I think Kyle Pitts, while people might not be enthusiastic about the pick because it would be a bit of an overdraft if you're talking about taking a guy who might go 12th and say, you know, he's going number 5. But I do think he would fill a need for the Chargers. But this is kind of in the event Hunter Henry leaves, which I don't think is happening right now. So yeah, that's kind of my honorable mention. There are a lot of other guys you can mention here. Gregory Rousseau is a favorite of a lot of people. I like Rousseau, but I think 5 would also be a little high to take him. But there's plenty of guys I think you can make an argument for here. But this is kind of my top 5 list of the guys I would really like at number 5. So anyway, at number 5, on the top 5 picks that I like at 5 list is Micah Parsons. I like Micah Parsons a lot, linebacker from Penn State. He would make a lot of sense with this pick, and the response will be, well, you know, Kenneth Murray is kind of the middle linebacker of the future. And I understand that. But I do think Micah Parsons is kind of a do-it-all linebacker, whereas personally I envision Kenneth Murray as kind of a pass rusher, occasionally going into pass coverage. I don't think he's quite a do-it-all linebacker, and I don't think he's athletically quite as dynamic as someone like Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons is a guy who I think is unanimously the best linebacker in this class. Now, the reason he's at number 5 and not higher, I think that is mainly because it's just hard to see the Chargers taking another linebacker with Murray being on the team. Plus, you have someone like Drew Tranquill, who will be coming back next year from injury. So I think that's why it's hard to see them really going, investing a lot of draft capital back-to-back years in the first round with linebackers. So that's why I personally have Micah Parsons at 5. I wouldn't be mad at the pick, and I actually think Micah Parsons could fill a role on this team, even with Murray and Tranquill already here. He is the best linebacker in this class, but I just don't see the Chargers investing that much draft capital into one position back-to-back years in the draft. So that's why he's at number 5. Number 4 on the list of people I want the Chargers to take at number 5 is Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase is an interesting guy. I do think he's the best receiver in this class. Some people argue Devonta Smith, but I see Devonta Smith as kind of he's a bit not quite as dynamic as Jamar Chase. I think Jamar Chase is better as a guy who can create separation more easily, a little bit more athletic too. The comp for Devonta Smith is probably someone like Marvin Harrison, which obviously sounds very good. But that 4.6 speed will give teams concerns. And I think when you look at the speed of the other Chargers receivers, it might be better to go with someone who can more easily create separation, because we've seen Jalen Guyton, Mike Williams be okay with creating separation. Keenan Allen is obviously the best separator on this team, but I do think you might need another receiver, and that would be Jamar Chase. I think he's the best receiver in the draft. Again, I know some people will argue for Devonta Smith, and I feel like Devonta Smith's gotten a lot of coverage because Jamar Chase specifically opted out, and also LSU has gone to crap offensively without him or Joe Burrow. So it's been a tough year for LSU, but I think Jamar Chase would make a lot of sense, especially if you're thinking forward here to 2022. Mike Williams will be a free agent after his option in 2021. So I think it would make a lot of sense to build for the future. You also talked about the AFC West arms race that's going on when it comes to receivers. Obviously, last year we saw the amount of draft capital the Broncos spent on receivers. We saw the Raiders took the first receiver of the draft with Henry Ruggs, which was a very bold move that I don't know if that's quite panned out over Justin Jefferson or CeeDee Lamb, but they did spend that draft capital, right? And they do want to build out that receiving core. It's all an attempt to catch Kansas City ultimately at the end of the day in the AFC West. So I think Jamar Chase would make a lot of sense, and if you give Herbert more weapons. I'm not thrilled about taking a receiver in the top 5, just because I do think there are guys like Jalen Waddle and Devonta Smith later on in the draft if the Chargers want to trade back, where they could go get those guys and have draft capital on top of it. But if they took Jamar Chase at number 5, I personally would not complain. I think dude is a stud. A 1 year of a receiving core with him, Keenan, and Mike Williams, plus Hunter Henry, plus Austin Eckler, and maybe you have Guyton or Tyron Johnson as kind of the deep ball guy. I think that would be a really fun offense to watch. So at number 3 on the guys I want them to take at number 5 is Quitty Payne. So Quitty Payne is one of the 2 edge rushers that I think is expected to go in the top 10 right now. Rousseau is the other. I personally like Quitty Payne as a better fit for this team, and I originally liked Rousseau, but Steven actually did a little bit of converting me on this. After watching some of the film, I think he is very similar to a Melvin Ingram in terms of his build, in terms of how he moves on the field, and I think he is a more natural replacement because they're very likely going to let Melvin Ingram walk in free agency. So if you have the chance from day one to put Joey Bosa next to Quitty Payne, I think that makes a ton of sense. And we'll see how that goes. I don't really know if I see him as a number 5 pick. That might be a little high for him. I've seen a lot of mock drafts that have him around 10, for example. So that might be a situation where the Chargers might want to trade back. But if they stay at 5, I would not be mad with Quitty Payne. I think right now he is the most experienced, kind of most qualified edge rusher in this class. At number 2 of guys I want the Chargers to take at number 5 is Caleb Farley. Caleb Farley is a cornerback from Virginia Tech. Like Jamar Chase, he opted out of the 2020 season, so there hasn't been a lot of tape on him, but this dude is a physical beast, 4.3 speed, over 6 foot. He reminds me a little bit of Michael Davis in a way. He does have Michael Davis's build, but I think he's a better CP1 than Michael Davis. So if you have the chance to re-sign Michael Davis and go get a guy like Caleb Farley, plus Chris Harris, maybe that you kind of still keep Casey Hayward on the team. That could be a little nice cornerback group right there. I think Farley has a lot of the sort of physical intangibles that make corners great. His speed is obviously a big weapon. A lot of people compare him to Jimmy Smith of the Ravens, but he has better speed. a little bit than Jimmy Smith. So I think that's his main advantage, if we're talking about corners in this draft class. And obviously, as I said before, Patrick Surtain is off the board, right? So that I think Surtain is a little bit better than Farley, but if Farley's the second best cornerback in this class, honestly, this dude with his physical attributes, his tight coverage, he could be the first cornerback in really any other class that didn't have Patrick Surtain. So I think if he's the pick, he's personally my favorite player to take at number 5. So, if you're saying, well, if Farley's your favorite player, then why is he not your number 1 option for the 5th pick? And I'll tell you why. My number 1 option for the 5th pick is to trade back. So it is not another player, but trading back to me right now, if you're not in the position for Penei Sewell, and if you're not in the position for Patrick Surtain, I think it makes a lot of sense. Now, there are going to be a lot of quarterback needy teams in the draft. We have Washington, who's going to be wanting their quarterback of the future, despite Alex Smith's performance this year. You have someone like Chicago, who's been kind of linked to Trey Lance a little bit. Steven's Mormon, cousin probably, Zach Wilson, is available, and I could see him kind of being considered as a top 5 pick for teams that want to trade up with the Chargers. So, I did see a mock draft today that had Washington trading up. You have Chicago right there. You have a team like Detroit as well. There are going to be a lot of teams that are looking for quarterbacks of the future. And if you're number 5, that is a prime position to trade back. And then look, if let's say you trade back to number 11 with Washington, then I think it makes a lot of sense to take a guy like Rashawn Slater, who's the offensive lineman from Northwestern. I just think 5 is a little high to take him, but obviously the draft will change a lot between now and April in terms of which guys are top 5 guys and which guys aren't, right? So, that could very much change with combine performances and stuff like that. But I do think the best option for the Chargers is to trade back, particularly with a quarterback needy team. If someone like Atlanta or Washington, Chicago, Detroit, if one of those teams wants to trade up for a quarterback, I think the Chargers could get, reasonably speaking, probably 3 picks out of it. Obviously, you get probably a first-round pick from this year, from whichever team you would trade back with. You probably get a 3rd-round pick from this year, and potentially a first-round pick next year, right? Depending on how much and how hot the competition for these quarterbacks like Lance and Zach Wilson is. So those are my top 5 things I want the Chargers to do with the 5th pick. So to recap, I have Kyle Pitts as kind of my honorable mention. I have Micah Parsons at number 5, Jamar Chase, number 4, Quitty Payne, 3, Caleb Farley at 2, and a trade back option is currently the best thing the Chargers can do with the draft, considering they are not in position for Patrick Surtain or Penei Sewell. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll try to do more of them in the future as we get closer to the draft, as we get closer to the end of this, tough Chargers season. So I will want to do much more on this channel and on the Patreon. Go subscribe to us on the Patreon if you're not. If you don't, cool. But we appreciate all the support that we get there. So thank you guys, and see you next time.